but volumes have been good, especially the cash market volumes have been decent enough. Let's welcome in our morning guest at this moment. SP Prasad is now joining us. Vijay Chopra is also with us, as well as Ruchit Jain is joining us. Meghna Malkan also with us this morning. Good morning to all of you. Meghna, let's start with you. What are the calls for the day?
We have two calls from the metal sector for the day. My first call would be a buy call on Vedanta Limited. The stock, essentially, if you see technically, it's forming higher tops, higher bottoms in daily as well as weekly charts. And momentum is growing strong. If you see the volume in the rising trend index is higher than the volume in the declining trend index. So I think it's a good buy considering the sector too. The sector is going strong too. So Vedanta is a good buy for the current at the current level with a stop loss of 246 and expected target of 265 on the trade. My second call is a buy call on Jindal Steel and Power. This stock peculiarity has been this long consolidation from quite some time, and it's breaking out of this consolidation beautifully. If you see the weekly charts, momentum is gaining strength too with good volumes. So Jindal Steel is a good buy with a stop of 87 for a target of 105.
Right, SV, what are your calls?
Well, I stick to my, good morning to you, Pankaj, and to everybody. I stick to my tried and tested, SBI, HPCL and Sun Pharma. Sun Pharma is the new name which I like, I think it's slowly getting over all its problems. And these are the three calls that I have.
So SBI is the new one. Which are the other two?
SBI is always there. The Sun Pharma is the new one.
Sun Pharma is the new one.
Yeah.
So SBI, Sun Pharma, HPCL.
Yeah.
And out of which SBI and HPCL were always a buy.
Correct.
Right. So these are the three large cap picks coming in from SP Prasad. Ruchit, what are your calls?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Pankaj. Well, first call is a buy call in Axis Bank. Probably since last 1.5 months, we have seen after the corrective phase, the stock has been in a consolidation phase now. And within this consolidation phase, the prices have formed an inverted head and shoulders, which is a reversal pattern formed after the correction. So we are expecting a pullback rally, a good pullback rally in this stock in short term. One can go long around current levels itself with stop loss below 465, expecting target of 532. My second call would be a buy call in Infosys, a bit contra call in the IT sector. But what we have seen, if you observe the weekly charts, then I think levels around 900 has acted as a support several times in last 1.5 years. So the stock is right now trading near its medium to long term support zone. So I think one pullback rally is expected in this stock in very near term. So one can go long with strict stop loss below 895 and expecting a pullback move up to 1020. And my last call is a buy call in Berger Paint. The stock has been volatile in last 3-4 months, but within this volatility, the stock has formed a symmetrical triangular pattern on the daily charts. During last week, prices have given a breakout on the upside from that symmetrical triangle pattern, which indicates that probability of the longer term uptrend would get resumed in this stock. So one should buy this stock with keeping a stop loss below 209 and expecting target around 242.
Mr. Chopra, what would be your calls?
My three calls for today would be, first is Petronet LNG. The stock has been moving and consolidating very well. I think that there is a serious upside locked into this stock. The stock closed at 387 rupees on Friday. It could be bought for a short-term target of 410, although my medium-term target for the stock is 450. I recommend a stop loss of 370 on the stock. My second call would be OBC, Oriental Bank of Commerce. The stock closed at 130 and it could be bought for a short to medium term target of 140 and a stop loss of 120 is recommended on the stock. My final call would be Piramal Enterprises Limited. The stock closed at 1704 rupees. It could be bought for a short term target of 1760 and a stop loss of 1650 is recommended on the stock.
Alright, so those are the picks coming in from our guest. Wanted to find out what you're seeing on the charts for some of the pharmaceutical stocks. Ruchit, Dr. Reddy's came out with their earnings and they're going to react to their earnings. But on the charts, what do you see for Dr. Reddy's? And another pharmaceutical stock, which is Sashunt Strides. It came out with its earnings last week and the stock on Friday saw a very large candle. These two counters.
Yeah, Anisha, if we observe Dr. Reddy, then definitely last couple of trading sessions we have seen a good up move in the stock, and that too the stock has recently bounced back from its good support zone, which was around 2900 to 2950. I think within the pharma space, it would be more of a stock specific move now here on. Dr. Reddy's is definitely expected to do is expected to do good, because the set of short-term and medium-term moving averages have also given a positive crossover, and hence we can see a short-term up move up to 3250 and even on the higher side up to 3280, 3290. So definitely the biasness is positive in this stock in Dr. Reddy's. And as far as Strides Sassoon is concerned, definitely Friday's trading session we saw a good up move with very good volumes if we compare with the volumes in the recent past. Now if you observe the positional charts, then 1195, 1200 is a very crucial resistance zone for the stock if you observe on the closing basis. But the way volumes have panned out in Friday's trading session, there is higher probability that this resistance would be taken out, and there is the chances that the stock would head higher towards 1330 levels in very short term. Now within this pharma space itself, one more stock that I would like to touch upon is Cipla. We have seen a good momentum in this stock and a breakout of the consolidation phase on Friday's trading session. Now if we compare this stock within this sector, it has been a good relative outperformer, wherein the other stocks have shown a price-wise correction, whereas Cipla had recently shown a time-wise correction by remaining sideways and not correcting. So I think if any sort of pullback move or any sort of rally has to come in the pharmaceutical sector as a whole, then within the large cap stock, Cipla would be an outperformer, and this stock would continue to head higher towards a 650, 660 zone. So from trading perspective, within the large cap space, our top pick is Cipla at this moment. Dr. Reddy is definitely Dr. Reddy and Strides Sassoon, and both these stocks are also expected to do better at least in near future.
Alright, so 3 picks in the pharma space, Cipla, Dr. Reddy's and Strides Sassoon. Let's talk about the big event that we'll be watching out for this week. In
a set of numbers. SV, let's start with the ACC. Numbers are weak and they have been weak for a while, but you don't expect the stock to derate?
No, not really, because the management that is behind ACC, I mean, they have deep pockets. And see, I'm not particularly surprised that the numbers are weak, because impact of demonetization clearly impacts a lot of these players. So I'm not particularly concerned. This is not a stock that I invest in. I mean, one has one's own reasons for not investing. If at all one looks at a cement pack, there are much better names. You know, you have Ultratech, you have Ambuja Cements. So you have better names to look at. Of course, Ambuja and ACC are joined at the hip. So I think Pankaj, there are better names to look at in this cement pack, which are a lot more efficient players. Because ACC has always, let's face it, has had legacy issues as well. It's an old company. Yes, they are trying to get things going. So I'm not, if I were an ACC investor, I would not be unduly worried.
Right, ACC will be in focus. This is the pre-open price. It's 11 points on the lower side. Jet Airways also will be in focus. They declared numbers. Anisha took you through results of DV's and Dr. Reddy's. Both these names will be in focus. A lot of other mid-cap companies, whether it's Gulf Oil, whether it's SSI Papers, a lot of companies declared their numbers. So they all would be in focus just as the market start. ACC is expected to be down about 11 to 12 odd rupees. BHEL on your screen is up 0.8. Aurobindo Pharma is up 1%. Nifty, as indicated by SGX, has opened at 8,790, 50 points higher. Aurobindo Pharma is up 1%. Idea Cellular is up 0.5. Bank of Baroda is up 0.5. BHEL is now up a full 1%. Axis Bank, it was a part of our picks list from CLSA's list as well as our morning guest. Axis Bank is up 1%. Dr. Reddy's, it's reacting to numbers. Numbers were better than estimates. However, the outlook was not that good, and that's why probably this sort of a reaction. Bharat Forge is up 3%, 28.29 rupees for Bharat Forge, 38,000 shares traded right from the word go. Dr. Reddy's down about 2%, 3,078 for Dr. Reddy's, 24,000 shares traded. Dr. Reddy's, DV's Lab, is up around 1% or so. That's also a results reaction. However, Dr. Reddy's guidance was on the muted side. ACC down about 1%, 1,412 for ACC. That's reacting to numbers. Jet would see a big decline. It's down about 2% right now. About 2.5 lakh, close to 3 lakh shares traded for Jet Airways, 372 for that name. AdLabs Entertainment reacting to numbers. It's up close to 3%, 10,000 shares traded. Very, very strong move coming in. Indian Hotels 5% higher. EBITDA was pretty good, and that led to the profitability jump in this quarter. Quick Heal numbers were somewhat surprising. However, down 6%. The profits went down 95%, and maybe that's why it's down 6% from the first tick. Gulf Oil, let's look at that name as well. Absolutely flat, no volumes. I think numbers were in line, and that's why it's not reacting quite heavily to this sort of a move. Sonata Software, absolutely flat, 9,000 shares traded, no major move for Sonata Software as well. KCP Sugars, very good set of numbers, 5% higher, 93.94 for KCP Sugars. JK Lakshmi Cement, you will hear from the management as we progress on the show, 2.5-3% higher. Dalmia Bharat, OCL Limited would have already indicated about the numbers. It came in on Friday. It's a subsidiary which contributes significant to Dalmia Bharat, but up around 1.5%. JSPL was in focus on Friday. It's up around 2.5% today as well. Talks of stake sale in their power business. That's what's going in the market. So about 93.94. Grasim is up close to about 1.7 odd percent. 960 for Grasim. 33,000 shares traded. Ujjivan Financial announcement expected today regarding their small finance bank. It's up around 1.2, 1.3 odd percent. Lupin has got an approval, but it just came in like 5 minutes before closing. So it's up around 1% or so. Anisha, any names on the volume front that you can pick up?
Pankaj, we've seen some buzz surrounding the JP Group names on Friday, and today again we see that move continuing. Jayaprakash Infotech is up 7% on reasonable volumes. Jayaprakash Power Ventures up 4%. JP Associates up 3.5%. So the entire JP Group names are buzzing today and are seeing action. Of course, we are going to see the UP polling start soon. We have Cyient up 4.5%. Sun TV continues with its superb move. That one is up 4.5%. We've got Manappuram Finance up 3.5%. Some of the real estate names like Anant Raj, Unitech, they're also seeing reasonable moves today. They're in the green and are looking higher. We've also got Subex up 2.5%. Subex had come out with a strong set of earnings last week, and the stock continues with its upmove. Some of the sugar names like Bajaj Hindustan, Ugar Sugar are also higher. On the losing end, Jain Bank is down 3.5%, and Oriental Bank of Commerce is down 1.5%. But for the markets, it looks like smooth sailing at this point in time. The Nifty is up 51.6%, the Sensex is up 6%, and the Bank Nifty is up 1%. So the market seems to be firing on all guns, and it's looking quite good for the frontline indices. Meghna, what do you make of the move on some of these JP Group name stocks? Today we are seeing JP Infotech up 7%. Last week itself, these counters had started moving higher. So do you have any targets for JP Associates or JP Infotech?
Hi Nisha. Yes, JP Infotech is began the week with a good move. In fact, if you see last week's candle pattern itself, it began the move by taking support of the 20 period moving average in the weekly chart. Volume was especially high compared to its previous average volumes in the weekly charts as well. I think this is purely a move out of the consolidations news based. The momentum too, which was consolidating since more than a year, it's now moved into the new zone, which is the bullish zone. I think this move will continue. If it sustains above this, if sustains above the 60 level on the weekly chart, that is, I think we are here to see some good levels on the weekly chart around, I would say around 17 from here. So that should be a good move from here, I think.
All right. SV, what would you make of banks like ICICI Bank and Axis Bank? Now their earnings are done. Would you buy these banks as well? You like SBI, but what about the leading private sector bank names?
See, frankly, I've always stuck to the tried and tested. I mean, when you have names like HDFC Bank, and then one would also look at Kotak quite closely. IndusInd is another name. While I do have my wife has a small holding in ICICI Bank. I think they still have quite some issues to handle, and I would much rather, when there are options available, why really try and look at these names. I think when the economy recovers, really speaking, then it's when you will see banks like ICICI, Axis, which have a larger exposure to the corporate sector relative to the other private sector players. You expect these banks to have more value for the buck.
All right, so there are better bets in the private sector banking space. What about the IT space, Vijay? We have seen some profit taking coming post the big earnings coming out, and once that H1B visa bill was tabled, a lot of profit taking took place in the leading IT names. How would you trade any of these? Are any of them offering you good investment bets?
Well, these are just trading bets and not investment as of now, because if the largest market for exports for Indian IT companies is a bit shaky, I would be a bit skeptic in getting into IT stocks as of now. But yes, there is a trading opportunity, I would say, and there has been a serious short covering in these stocks, and given this, so we have seen an upside in stocks like Infosys and TCS. But again, I'm not very hopeful on the spike on these stocks. I would prefer defense stories rather. I would prefer public sector banks rather, and I would also prefer fertilizer companies. I think stocks like NFL and Rashtriya Chemical, these companies give you a better opportunity to make money rather than being in the IT stuff.
Right, Ruchit, what will be your view on Jet Airways? It's down 2% because of results.
Pankaj, overall we have seen that the recent pullback rally has been restricted up to 89 EMA on the daily charts. So definitely the low top low bottom formation which was there since last about 6 to 7 months is still continuing. We have not seen any meaningful patterns which would indicate that the stock has bottomed out and again the higher top higher bottom or the reversal of the trend is there. So I think clearly this stock would underperform. This stock has underperformed and would continue to underperform the broader markets as far as at least short term trading is concerned. On the lower side, the supports for the stock lies in the range of 335 to 340 and 420 is likely to act as resistance. So what one can do for a trading strategy is that whenever the stock comes to the lower end of the range of the support range, one can buy over there, keeping a stop loss about 3 to 4% below the support. And again, when the stock rallies or gives a pullback up to the higher end of the range up to 410 range, look to book profits and exit over there. So we can expect a range bound movement in coming weeks, and not any sort of trended move should be there.
Right, SV, what do you make of the numbers of Jet Airways? It continues to point out problems as far as yields, the pricing pressure versus the sector is concerned.
No, certainly, frankly, if you compare, let's say, an Indigo and a SpiceJet with Jet, I'm talking of operational efficiencies. I'm not talking of the segments they're attacking. Indigo and SpiceJet, obviously the efficiency of operation. For Jet, it's never been a great in operational efficiency. So when oil prices, ATF fuel prices start looking up, it's almost a direct correlation as far as Jet is concerned. So therefore, if at all one is looking at this sector, and I would not, frankly, and I don't, I would much rather look at something like an Indigo and maybe SpiceJet, though one can argue that all these stocks have run up and are sort of peaking there, rather than a name like Jet Air. Yes, I certainly like to travel in Jet Air business class, but in terms of owning in this space, I would much rather focus on something like an Indigo or SpiceJet.
Right, Mr. Chopra, how would you look at the airline sector as a whole? Would you be positive on airline sector?
Well, the entire equation depends upon crude. Now, when crude oil was declining, the airline sector was rejoicing, and we've seen, huge profits coming on the books. But now the crude has been volatile. It has been, hitting higher levels. So about 35 to 40% of the costs of airline operations is primarily related to the fuel. So if the fuel costs are high, so definitely the profitability would be low. Although I agree that the passenger traffic has been increasing very steadily. So I would agree with my colleague that, I would like a SpiceJet over Jet Airways, because the operational efficiency of SpiceJet has increased quite a bit. The company has been a complete turnaround, and I think that they have the capability of being in black much more than Jet Airways as of now. So I would say that it's better to stay away from the airline space, because I think that the profitabilities would be hit once the crude, crude increases further. But again, if my best pick in the airline space, if you ask me, would be SpiceJet.
Right, Meghna, Bharat Forge is looking quite strong today. US class order 8 numbers have come, and it's that time when it actually started to decline. The stock had made a top. Do you think it is making a bottom formation now?
Well, Bharat Forge has been consistently moving in a very tight range. If you see the weekly chart, we've had a very narrow range, and interestingly, it's not breaking the 20 period moving average. It's been taking support at that and consistently moving up. Last week, it formed an indecisive candle pattern. I believe the high of which the high once it's crossed, it calls for a good buy, because that would take the momentum in the weekly chart into the new zone, the bullish zone. So I think we should track that zone. A weekly close, I believe, about 992 levels would be good for the stock. Would be good to initiate a fresh long position on the stock. That would really track the stock for a weekly close above that level.
Right, SP, how would you look at Bharat Forge, which US truck orders reversing back in terms of growth? Is that a reason to buy?
No, certainly. I think the management is first class, and they've been. They've really gone up the learning curve, so they are there. And if at all any Indian sector which one can unambiguously say will benefit from Trump's the president's US president's pump priming of the US economy, employment, etc. I think Bharat Forge would be one company that comes to mind in terms of being a beneficiary, unlike we have concerns on IT, etc. So clearly this is a stock to watch out for. It's a good quality stock. One actually can also, Pankaj, look at some of the other auto ancillaries. I don't have a ready Dobi list with me right now, but clearly other auto ancillaries which focus on especially the US market, I think this is definitely a time to look at some of these names.
All right, so that's Bharat Forge for you. Ruchit, what do you make of the move in some of the real estate names? What's your call on HDIL?
See, HDIL on the charts in today's trading session, it is showing a breakout of the consolidation range which was happening since last 1.5 months. But within the sector, if we see, then DLF is one of the stock which has been showing a relative strength, and hence I think although even HDIL is looking a good, then a breakout could lead the stock upwards up to say 73, 74 levels. But comparatively, I think the relative strength that we have seen in DLF is likely to continue in going ahead. If the sector as a whole continues to perform well, then DLF could head higher towards 160 levels. So a bit of positive bias is there from trading perspective in the real estate sector, but would prefer to go to trade in DLF rather than HDIL.
All right. Vijay, what do you make of the move in Manappuram Finance? It's seen a stupendous 17% move coming in the last week. For companies like Manappuram, do you think the clouds have cleared? Or do you think you'd be a little cautious after the sharp up move? If somebody has not bought it till now, does it make sense to get in now?
Well, I think that the entire finance sector is a force to reckon with now, and I think that the kind of budget which has been presented by the government of India, there's a lot in store for all the financial services companies, and companies like Manappuram, which are extended hands of the banking system, and they provide easy credit to the nooks and crannies of the country, and credit against gold is an age-old system, and I think that the company has the potential to fire from here. I think that the target I would give for Manappuram would be 120, and it still can be bought into.
All right, Manappuram can still be bought. What about a stock like Fortis Healthcare, Vijay? That also has been buzzing a lot. Does it make a good investment bet?
Well, healthcare is something which India needs, and the reason why Fortis has been in news is that there has been some kind of news around stake sale, and the possibility is that the promoters might be able to spin off this asset. So we can see a upside in the stock. My take is that it can go up to 210, 215. So definitely it's a good trading bet, and it has some steam in store.
All right, it's a good bet and which is positive on this. Thank you so much for joining us on NDTV Profit to the gentleman and the lady. Before we go, let's take your disclosures. Megha, let's start with you. What are your disclosures?
I do not have holdings in the stocks that I discussed. My students may have.
Ruchit, your disclosures?
I do not personally hold any of the stocks that we have discussed, but all the 3 recommendations that we have given have been recommended to our clients also.
Mr. Prasad, your disclosures?
State Bank of India, HPCL, Sun Pharma, all the 3 names that I mentioned, I said they're good buys. I hold a small stake in each of them, each of the 3 stocks.
Vijay, your disclosures?
No personal holdings. Whatever stocks I've recommended, we keep on recommending to our clients.
Thank you so much for joining us on NDTV Profit today.
On that note, we are taking a first break.